Today, I'm going to be talking about being an assistant director. I feel like I've never really talked about this topic, and I've talked about being a PA, being, the mistakes on set, or being a director, and all these things, but I've never really talked about my job specifically, why I love it, why I don't really follow other assistant directors and their practices. And we're going to get into some common misconceptions, the ladder of an AD, where they go, what you do before and after being an AD, and overall, maybe just pros and cons, what likes and dislikes, the power control or lack of power control. We're going to get into a lot of different stuff. Getting into being assistant director, common misconceptions is like, if you're an assistant director, you want to be a director. And I think that is true for some folks. They want to definitely be a director. And if you think about the title being assistant director, you're thinking like, okay, well, it says director, so therefore it's got to be in, it's got to be in line with being a director. And it's very, very different. The job of a director versus assistant director is very, very different, where an assistant director is going to be dealing with logistics, problem solving, planning, a lot of the scheduling and everything that goes with kind of a nuts and bolts of making something happen. Whereas the director is going to be, yes, he is going to be or she's going to be the leader of a set. And they're kind of, push the ship forward, make sure you progress, but creatively. And they're dealing with actors' performance, and they're saying yes and no to certain creative decisions. So, and assistant directors don't honestly really get to do anything creatively, really, unless it's like background. I kind of fall sometimes into the situation where I will be with the director and they'll ask me, hey, Amber, what do you think of this take? What do you think of this frame or whatever? And I'm like, okay, that's a creative question. And I think that if you're asking me, I will give you my opinion, but it's definitely not in my job description, right? So misconceptions is that if you are an assistant director, and there are many assistant directors, like there is an additional assistant director, there is a second assistant director, there's a key second assistant director, there's a first assistant director, there's a lot of different assistant directors, and across the pond and internationally, the second is known as the third assistant director. So there's a lot of them. They do a lot of different things, but all of it's basically dealing with, handling and managing the actors, making sure they are through hair, makeup, wardrobe, getting on set, they know where to go, they know what time to be there, scheduling, all those things. Also scheduling the run of the day. When should we shoot this thing, and how can we do it efficiently to make sure we're not wasting time or waiting for sunlight or waiting for nighttime or all these things. Another responsibility is kind of seeing not really a responsibility, but I think the outlook for an assistant director is we have to see the whole picture, right? There are a lot of details that we deal with. So if you are someone who can look at the small details, but also see the big picture, that's going to work really, really well in your favor when you're an assistant director, because you have to be able to look at all the pieces together. And that's kind of funny that when I think about being an assistant director, I think about kind of the aerial view of all the departments kind of circling production, and like maybe the actors and the director are in the middle, and like everything around them are all the other departments, and bringing all them together. And some people find being an assistant director one of the worst jobs on set, because they think they have to be the asshole. And that's another misconception, is like, if you're an assistant director, you're an asshole. I'm sorry for swearing, but like that is something that I guess goes with the territory for some reason. Like, you can run a set, you can run a smooth set without being an asshole. It is totally possible. There are going to be some times where you got to make sure you push the crew in the right direction. But you have to think about, you're pushing the crew with certain encouragement, empowerment, making sure you're motivating in the right way. And listen, no one likes to work for assholes. And why do you want to piss people off and just make the atmosphere around you worse? It's horrible. I don't want to do it. I definitely am like, I don't want to create an environment where I'm just going to make people mad and they're grumpy with me. Why do I want to make crew members grumpier when I have to work with them for 12 hours in that day? Definitely not doing it. That's crazy, right? The common stereotypes, right, is that they're assholes and they're just screaming and yelling on set. I don't think that's the best way to run a set. That is just not what I think it is. So I will say that if you're an assistant director, I want to challenge you to just be nice, kind, compassionate, empathetic, even. Oh my goodness, I'm saying so many soft words that some people are like, no, you gotta get the job done, we're on a schedule, But if you think about it, more flies with honey, that whole phrase, right? So I think that being a tough ass, yes, you have to have that quality. You have to have that presence. You have to have that commanding presence. You have to be a leader. You have to be tough. You can't be a pushover. But you also have to have the compassion and empathy because you are dealing with people. All kinds of people. All kinds of people are going to be on set, all types of personalities, and you have to be able to manage and also mediate between people who are not getting along. You don't want to be the one that is creating the friction. You want to be the one to eliminate the friction on set. So I'm always a big proponent of the AD is going to be the one who sets the morale on set. That is definitely an unwritten responsibility because let's get into the responsibilities. Like I said before, responsibilities like you are planning the shoot. You are figuring out efficiently where to put what scene in the schedule to make sure we have the most efficient day, the quickest day possible, and also the quickest overall schedule for a movie, TV show, whatever it is, whatever the project is. Right? You're creating that schedule. You're putting scenes in certain order. And also you're working with certain departments based on what they need and if the order makes sense. For example, let's just say number one actor, she's getting out of the bathtub and she has wet hair. Are you going to put that up first in the morning? Maybe if it eliminates time in the morning, but you don't want to put it in the middle of the day where she's going to get ready, have dry hair, then get wet again, never have to dry her hair again. You have to think about all those things. Also, when you're dealing with like special effects blood or something, when you don't want to put blood on the first thing of the day when you know you have other things that's like leading up to certain shots where they need to be unblooded, right? They need to be clean before they get into the blood. So it's like you have to think about all those things and what order to put them in that is the most efficient and the smartest way to go about it, where you don't have to like go back and waste time and like redo something that's going to take another 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And also camera equipment, right? How long is it going to take to set up that dolly? How long is it going to take to set up that jib or that crane shot and all these things? So the assistant director is taking into account all of these major elements when it comes to shooting, right? So we are thinking about the best schedule possible. And that is before you get on set. Before you get on set, before you start shooting anything, you're thinking about all that stuff in prep, and you're trying to create the best schedule possible to have the smoothest day. Now, other responsibilities is like making sure the actors know what the hell is going on. And I haven't even talked about communication. You want to make sure everyone, including cast, know what's happening. What day are we shooting this and this? What day are the actors on set? What day are the locations that we're going to be at? Knowing what everything is like going to be happening on a certain day, everyone has to know those things. So communication. I haven't even talked about communication. Like set morale is like this unwritten thing. But communication, if you are not giving information as an assistant director, you are not doing your job. If you are just standing there and you're just yelling rolling, that is not what an AD does. Well, okay, we do definitely say rolling, but that is not the only thing. There are so many things that an AD has to do to get to that point to make sure that we can even start rolling. Right? There are so many ducks that have to be in a row to make that happen. Set morale, timing, scheduling, making sure you have all the pieces. And this is something that also can really mess up your day is if an element, a prop, some people have forgotten actors. When certain things are forgotten, you want to make sure that whatever scene you're shooting, you have all the things you need from every department. Maybe it's an important prop. Maybe it's like a prop gun. Maybe it's a certain jacket that should be on the couch in in the scene when so-and-so walks in the door and you have to make sure you see it. Or maybe it's a hat that has to be reset. Anything. You have to make sure you have all the elements. You can't just be like, oh, well, I think maybe. No, you have to over and over. I think when I'm on set, I kind of go through this like, okay, when you're shooting a scene, I think the best case scenario for you as an assistant director, when you're shooting a scene, you should be looking at the next scene and the next scene after that to make sure all the elements are in place. Like, is there a picture car that we need? Do we have it? Is it on set? Is it parked in the place we want it parked? So making sure you're ahead of the game. Like by the time you're rolling on that scene, you've basically already got all the elements you need for that scene. So you should already be thinking about the next thing, right? The next thing you're going to be shooting. So making sure you have all the things so you don't have to wait. For example, one of the shows I worked on, I cannot say what show it is because it's really, everyone's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. We were shooting internationally, and there was a big scene with a certain plate of food. The actor references this plate of food. And then a waiter comes with this plate of food in the scene. So we come to the scene, we know this scene is coming, it's the second scene of the day, this is what we're doing. And as an AD, you're like, I don't think I have to check with every department to make sure they have all the things, because it's a major thing. When you're like, when the scene is about a very specific thing and it's like a very prominent item in the scene, you think, you would think that you wouldn't have to double check with that department. Well, I will say this. What I've learned from many a shoot is that you always double check, because the more important it is in the scene, the more I'm going to be checking that it's actually there and it's waiting and it's standing by to be used. Well, in the scene, the plate of food, they didn't have it. They didn't have anything that was remotely close to the food we needed in the scene, so we waited 35 minutes for them to get this plate of food from the place we were shooting. 35 minutes for a plate of food is unacceptable in the world of film. I will tell you this right now. It is really, really pretty bad when you're waiting 35 minutes for food. And it also makes that department look horrible. And I do not like throwing any department under the bus. I don't want to blame anybody. I don't like playing the blame game. I like playing let's solve this problem game. Like, oh, this is the thing? Okay, I don't care who it was or what it was. Let's just fix it. Let's progress. Let's do what we have to do. Because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of ADs and a lot of people that work in film that love to play the blame game, and they love to like wallow in that, well, it wasn't me, it was so-and-so's fault. How about this? How about we're already shooting the scene, let's forget about it, let's move on. Let's make sure we fix the problem, right? We can address it, but not like wallow in this, like, well, this person did this. I have a real big problem with people playing the blame game. Like, and this happens in the AD department a lot with like certain actors may not know what's going on, and you want to find out who said or did what and whatever, but sometimes you can't find it and no one's willing to fess up. And I know a lot of people are like afraid to get yelled at. Even us grown adults, we're afraid to be like blamed for something that happened. But it's like accountability. Accountability, guys. Let's just take that into account. Accountability is very, very, I feel like, underrated and very underused. Like, you being accountable for your actions. If you mess up, if you make a mistake, just admit it. Just admit it. Just say, you know what, that was me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tell this actor this or something. And I will definitely, as an AD, when I was a PA, when I was a key PA, when I was any of these roles, I'd be like, oh, you know, that was my fuck up. I'm really sorry, you know, and might have gotten a tongue lashing from so-and-so, or it might have cost the production money. Hopefully not a lot of money, but either way, the higher up you go, the more your mistakes are, basically. So when you're making mistakes as a first AD, those, they get deeper. They get a little deeper, a little more expensive, and they're a little bit more like, ugh, like a little bit. When you're making mistakes as a PA, it's not usually as bad. It's not like, they're like minor mistakes, but sometimes they can cost people money, so it just depends. But you can't be afraid of making mistakes, because those mistakes are what are going to make you better, for sure. Indie ADing versus union ADing. And I got into the positions a little bit with assistant directors as far as like, there's a first AD, there's a key second, there's a second, which is also a third, also known as a third assistant director in other areas of the world. And then you have additional, and then there's like a base camp AD. So there's so many different ADs on a union set. You have a bigger team, which is amazing when you have bigger stuff. And it makes sense because you have like a bigger crew, you have more cast, and maybe there's stunts and all the stuff you need. Oh yeah, and then more background, all these things. In the indie world, I have found myself as an indie first being the only AD, so I did everything. So for example, when you're an indie first assistant director, you're making that call sheet. you're gonna go and shoot the day, and then after wrap, you're gonna make the next day's call sheet. So people are like, "How the hell did you do that?" And I honestly look back at my indie AD days, and I'm like, I don't know how I managed that. And I didn't work on the call sheet during the day, but I just took a few hours after call. And what I used to do to give the crew a heads up, because I knew the information. You always know the information. And if you don't know the information, by the time you're making your call sheet, you're fucked. Basically, the production and producers didn't give you the information that you needed, right? So as an indie AD, I would wrap. after like a 10, 11, 12-hour day. I am really good at wrapping on time. I do not go over. I am super efficient. It's only been I would say a handful of days where I went over 12 hours. Handful of days. My track record's like really good. I will say that. Track record's really good. Not to brag. I need to brag. But I would wrap, and then what I would do is I would quickly send out an email to all the crew, and this is like maybe 30 to 50 people, and I would say, hey, tomorrow our call time is this is location, this is the crew call sheet to follow in a couple hours. Because they knew I was the only AD. So they gave me grace knowing that like I was on set all day, and then I had to make a call sheet when I wrapped. So like, thank God for the crew that I mean, maybe at the time I didn't realize that they understood that I was the only one doing all these things. So that's something that you couldn't expect as an indie assistant director, is being the only assistant director. So you're going to be doing the call sheets. You're going to be dealing with all the background. You're going to be dealing with all the cast. You're going to get the cast ready. You're going to run the set. So it's not like in the union world where the first AD gets to come to set at call, and then the key second or the base camp AD is there earlier, a couple hours earlier than the crew call, and they're getting cast ready and the stunts ready, and they're getting everyone through hair, makeup, and wardrobe. And then, then they send them to set, and then the first AD takes and runs the day with them or whatever, right? And the first AD has a second on set with them to help with managing the background and the cast and all the PAs and stuff like that. And sometimes I had like a couple PAs as an AD, like I think on a number of productions when I was on an independent film or short film, I maybe had 1 or 2 set PAs, and they were super green. So I was definitely training a lot while trying to run a set and while trying to give them stuff to do that is actually helpful for me in production. So that's the major thing with indie ADs versus union ADs, that you're basically an army of one, versus union where you have like a whole team that handles a whole lot more stuff, which is, amazing. Also, the pay is better when you're a DGA and a union AD. It's pretty nice. It's way better, because I would say, whereas you can make anywhere from, based on all of the different levels of ADs, like you can make anywhere from $430 a day. Now, this is like big budgets. Like I'm thinking like majors, which is like $15 million and up. Of whatever the budget is, you can make anywhere from $430 a day as a additional AD, all the way up to about, I think, $1,400 a day. That's a first AD, but then that's not including your production fees, and then your production fee is like an extra, I think, $300 or $400 a day. So, and I actually was a first AD on a stunt day for Equalizer. Happened last season, earlier this season. Oh gosh, I can't remember. No, yeah, it was in August of this year. And that check for that one day for being a first AD, I was like, whoo, it was a lot of money. It was almost $2,000. So I was like, for one day of work, $2,000. Being a union AD is pretty nice, and that's why it changes your life when you go from PA to AD overnight. You're just like making a ton of money and you don't know what to do with it. And that's obviously if you are blessed with having a job right after when you get into the DGA, obviously. So that's like the big difference, is like staff and money. But also, as an indie AD, I found that a lot of the production really relies on you for a lot of things, and you have, I feel like, more control, weirdly enough, or maybe it might be a me thing, I don't know. But in the indie world, it's kind of like I really felt like I was a team member of the producers trying to make the best day possible, and like there was more synergy. And it might be the same because I'm not a first yet in the DGA as far as like being like a staff first, right? I've done a couple days as a first, but not like full project as a first AD in the union world yet. So I just felt like there was like more collaboration to try and make sure you got the day. And it's like they really not relied on me, but they looked to me to be like, does this make sense? Can we do this? How about this? There was like way more, there was a closeness that I really liked that sometimes you don't get in the union world. And I always tell my sub PA trainees about this, where it's like people kind of look down upon indie films or short films or music videos and commercials because they operate differently, but also like they are, it's an environment where you are going to learn so much more if you are just starting out. because you have more grace. You can touch more things. You can be involved in way more things than you would be on a union set. You know, you can help with like grip, electric, and camera, and you can help with props, and you can help the art department and all these things. Whereas like you can't really do that in the union world, where you have to like be a union member to, you know, even touch a prop. So, or even the cast chairs for that matter. So I feel like there's an environment in the indie world where if I wanted to be a producer and I'm an AD, well then I can tell the producer like, hey, you know, I want to learn more about what you do. Then it's like they'll have you work with them more. It's just more inviting and more family oriented. And there's a closeness, and you just like, you can learn so much that you can bring to the union world to get them union checks. You know what I'm saying? Get that money. You have people who complain. And I swear, I wish I have to take a poll. I got to work with more assistant directors, but there are a section of assistant directors of just complainers. All they do is complain. And I cannot just deal with someone who's going to complain. Like, I guess I'm in a way different, like, mental game or mindset or life philosophy or something, but I don't want to complain about my day. Let's know the problems, let's fix them, let's move on, let's progress in our day, let's have a good time. Let's enjoy what we're doing. Let's look at this as like, let's not see the problems as in just problems, but like it could be worse. You know, like I'm all about that glass half full, where some people are choosing to see the glass half empty. And when someone chooses to see the glass half empty, they love to complain about it and they love to spread it. And then other people are going to look at that or the situation as also half full, right? Or half empty. So when you have someone who's like spreading good energy versus someone who's spreading the negativity, it's like they come together. And then sometimes the complainers win because people love negativity. Our brains are I think hardwired to avoid the bad, right? Not embrace the good. So it kind of takes a lot of work on someone's end to kind of see the positives in everything. Where it's like we're like primal animals, like we're based on fear. Like we will avoid all the things that cause us discomfort, cause us pain, cause us hurt, cause us like things that make us feel awkward or weird. So like it's hard for us to kind of have that positive mindset when you're on set because everything like, I mean, when I wrapped the movie that I just finished in January, mid-January, and one of the things that my boss said to me, one of the ADs, they go, Amber, I'm so sorry I brought you on this shit show. And I was like, whoa. I was like, just stop right there. I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, this was great. I learned a lot. This was an amazing experience for me. I got to work with Jack Houston. Are you fucking kidding me right now? I got to work with Michael Pitt and Jack Houston. And I don't really tend to like actors. And it was really funny because we were the only department that gave out wrap gifts to our department. We had these dope ass fucking jackets. I don't know if you saw some of my pictures on my Instagram, my personal Instagram. And I think, no, they're not on my Beyond Film School, but Sherms21 is my personal Instagram. If you want to see these jackets, I have a post about wrapping this movie. But the fact that she was like, I'm so sorry I brought you on this shit show. I was like, no, like I learned so much. Every day was different, new challenges. I learned so much as a second. It was just like, I chose to see it as like, there were challenges. I met them and we got there. We got what we needed. We got to the end. You know, we got that movie. So like I saw it as like a learning experience and I saw it completely different than how she saw it. And she just saw it as like some fucking dumpster fire. And I was like, no, not at all. Definitely perspective for sure. And complainer ADs are the worst because as assistant directors, like we talked about, like your responsibility as an AD is like logistics, problem solving, blah, 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 making sure everyone knows what's going on, communication, making sure the actors know what's happening, like making sure that people know what is going on, play by play, smooth day, efficiency, but set morale is also your job. Set morale. And I'm like, no, really, set morale is your responsibility. You are the voice of the set. Yes, the director is a leader. Yes, the director of photographer is a leader of the set. They're not setting morale. They definitely affect it. But because you are always the one to make announcements, do your safety meeting, you're going to tell the crew always what's happening. You are the voice of the set. And you can use that power for good. So use it for good. You can be there And you can be an asshole and you can yell and you can be like, yeah, we're going to get through our day. Blah, 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 it's going to be hard, blah, blah, blah. Or you can be like, you know what? We got a lot of work to do. We're going to go after it. We have this, this, and this going on. We're going to kill the day. You know, like, and I always, when I call the company in, I'm like, happy Monday, y'all. It's day 3. We're going to fucking kill it. Let's do it. Like, and everyone's like, woo, it definitely gets a different vibe. Right? When you call the company in, how you call the company in on the walkie and how people hear you, it's like your energy and how you decide as the voice of the set affects everybody. And I think that there are so many assistant directors that don't take that into consideration enough. They take it so lightly. And if you are not a presence as an AD, you are in the wrong line of work. You are in the wrong line of work, okay? If you're an assistant director on set that's quiet, has no stage presence, and not commanding, you're just like, what are you doing? Like, I'm sorry, there are some ADs who are definitely, they have a presence, they're kind of boring, their personality is kind of blah, but they have a good day, and they're not like, you know, they're like mediocre. I'm like, I'll take that. I'll take that. They lack in personality, whatever. I'm a bit like more dramatic and energizing and stuff like that. So I'm like trying to have fun, making sure people know what's going on. But also on the flip side, everyone knows not to fuck with Amber. I don't know what I do to make sure people know that they're like, you do what she says. I don't know, because I try not to be mean, but also if like push comes to shove, I will be ready for a confrontation. So it's like being nice, compassionate, empathetic. I want to let people know I care. I want to make sure everyone's going to have a good day. I want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm going to do my best to serve the crew. And when you know that, and when you know that is your job, you look at it a little bit different than just complaining that so-and-so doesn't know what they're doing. Well, how about you guide them in the right direction? Right? So, and I could talk about a conversation that was had with a friend of mine and an associate. We're all ADs, and they chose to look at it like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing. They don't know shot lists. They don't know how to shoot a movie. Well, as assistant directors, if you have a first-time director, I feel like it is your duty to make sure you are guiding them in the right direction during prep and on set. Like, if you're experienced, like, I love first-time directors because then I can kind of, like, guide them in the right direction where it's like I'm not molding them, but I feel like I might be instilling nice habits, good habits in them. So I think that it is taken too lightly when it comes to assistant directors, knowing that they are the morale of the set. They set the tone. And you can tell when you're on an episodic show, like The Equalizer, like NCIS, like SVU, Law & Order, all these shows that are like 23 episodes long. Yes, that's a season that's too damn long to work on. But like when you have a set of ADs that are this way, then you go to the other episodes where it's like they have even and odd. So assistant directors, there's like usually five or six on a show, and the first and second rotate. So like there's a even episode number ADs, and then there's an odd. So it's like they'll switch out back and forth. So, and you can tell the tone difference when you have two very different teams. And season 1 of The Equalizer, it was like a revolving door of like every time we got to evens, it was a new AD team and it was a new vibe. But we definitely didn't like the odds because they were like toxic and they were narcissistic and they were like, they abused all their PAs and they treated people like shit, and it was, and they thought they were funny. It's like, no one likes working on your episode because you're dicks. But like when we had to change over, we're like, oh no. It's like everyone knew the vibe they brought. And that's the power of an AD, is like your AD team definitely has the power to make or break a set. Trust me on that. Trust me. So if you're producers out there, producers, when you ask the AD what their style is, they're going to lie to you. They're like, oh, like respect everybody and this and that. I don't scream. Every AD in an interview will go, yeah, I'm not a screamer. I don't yell on set. Bullshit. 90% of those ADs do yell and they do scream and they are assholes. So I'm like movement. I'm trying to train PAs who want to be ADs and they want to be like, I think everyone overall, I think just needs to be more compassion on set, more empathy, but also like we got to do the things. We got to do the things. We're going to do them efficiently. We're going to do our job, because I think that people work better when they're happy. Is that, I don't know what you guys think in the chat. Like, let me know, like, do you think that people, when they are happy at their job, they work better? I have come to find out that when my PAs are happy, when they're being rewarded for very good things, they do better. They work harder for me. And I think that would go as far as to say that crew as well. So It's really funny, and I want to mention my PAs because, like, shout out to the movie that I just did, the PA staff. I love them, and I would give them gold stars. And this sounds so stupid, but I was like, I want to like show them that I noticed that they've gone above and beyond. They're doing a good job. So I started just giving out gold stars every day. I put their name in our PA and in the chat, and I did put a gold star if they did something. And they're like, oh my God. And like, they loved it. And then now it's been like almost a month after we wrapped that movie. And like, they would stay in the chat. They're like, I really need a gold star today. I'm like, you guys all get gold stars today. It's like that little reward, that little thing that says you did great. Like, I want you to know, like, I'm acknowledging that you did something good. Like, that goes so far with staff. As someone who is leading a team of people who are very, very new in the industry, because the AD department, we have all the set PAs. Some are more experienced, some are super green, they have no experience, some are in the middle, some are just about to become ADs. So it's like varying levels of experience. And one of the things I didn't really get to mention is the fact that part of your job as an assistant director is gonna be training PAs. And I think that a lot of ADs don't like to do this. But when you think about it, you have the power to train the PAs the way you want them to work for you. And I want to give a shout out to Rebecca. She's one of my set PA trainees. I worked with her on Friday. She took my class in 2019, and she's working her way up, and she's on the Equalizer, and I'm so proud of her for like really sticking it out, because she's been on the Equalizer for 3 seasons, and she's dealt with a lot, and I know her personality, and I felt like she's really, really grown. And she told me on Friday, she was like, you're like an evil genius. And she's like, I told Ebony about you, and I said that you were like an evil genius. And I was like, why? And then she's like, you're like training your future employees. I'm like, yeah. And like, one of the reasons why I started Beyond Film School is because, one, I wanted to help the people that were like me, had no idea how to get into the industry, had no connections, zero connections, like really no idea how to navigate the film industry at all. And the other reason was, as I was getting more and more jobs, it got harder to find set PAs I wanted to work with and set PAs that knew how to do the job. So the reason why I started the set PA class is because if I was able to train them, I was able to bring them on my jobs. So like, I was able to train them. They're paying me to train them to get into the industry, but also then they get to be on my job, and then I get to pay them. So essentially it's like the production pays them. So like, I get a good PA, production gets a good PA, they get paid for the day, they get the experience. So I feel like it was like a win-win. So when you have like a team that is new, you can train them the way you want them to work for you. And some ADs do not give PAs the time of day. They don't want to train them. They just let them make their mistakes, or they fire them when they make mistakes. They don't want to make the effort. They don't want to waste the time and effort and you know, the time that's needed to train the new people in your department. Because I mean, when you hire PAs, you sometimes are going to get like, you interview them, you look at their resume, but then they end up being something that you didn't realize. Maybe there's personality clashes or something. You never know, right? But is your job as an AD to train your staff, to make sure they know the job, to help them, you know? And I think sometimes, and I think maybe I see this more in New York, is the set PAs in New York have huge responsibility. And like paperwork PAs doing time cards and the PRs, and that's a huge responsibility. You know, cast PAs are like they're landing actors, they're putting in the hair and makeup, they're telling actors the play-by-play, and the background PAs are like making sure the background get paid and they're organized, they're getting through hair and makeup. It's like, that's really, really big responsibilities when it comes to production. And I think that when you go to the third area, it's like a lot of like the additional ADs are doing this job. And I mean, if you're trained in New York, you can basically work anywhere as far as I'm concerned. I'm not trying to be like putting New York on a pedestal or anything like that, but I feel like we put more weight on our PAs, which I think ultimately is kind of unfair for what they're being paid, but also they're getting more experience. So like I kind of feel I have like an internal battle with this because the way I am as an AD is that I know I get like triple or quadruple and sometimes more than that than what that PA is getting paid. So I feel like I'm going to take the weight. And this happened on a show I worked on where I was the base camp AD. And I'm getting paid like crazy amounts of money. I'm like almost getting paid $1,000 a day, which is like crazy when you think about it. When you're going from $210 a day to $1,000 a day, it's like, wow, my life has totally changed, right? And the PA said to me, she's like, why are you doing all this? Why are you doing so much? I'm like, fuck you talking about? Like, I'm helping you with running base camp. Like, I'm doing the things. Like, I make sure that I know that I'm talking to the actor, talking to her, make wardrobe, blah, blah. And then she was like, well, no, most base camp ADs don't do that. I'm like, why wouldn't they? I'm like, I told her straight out, I was like, I get paid more than you, therefore I want to take on more responsibility, and I don't want you to get blamed for something that I know I could have prevented. And it's like, I trust you, but also I should be helping you with your day. So there's like a lot of debate on how ADs use their PAs, and I think that because I get paid more, and because I am ultimately responsible for what you do or don't do, the mistakes you make, like I want to make sure that you're doing your job right. So I want to make sure I'm guiding you in the right direction. And some ADs will just like let a PA flounder and fail, and then they'll be like, oh, well, it's the PA's fault. No, it's your fault because you're the AD, you're the one responsible, and you're the one that's supposed to guide them in the right direction. So when PAs get fired, like, I don't know if any of you guys have been PAs and you've been fired for something that was just like maybe a dumb mistake, but I think that sometimes the ADs are just not accountable. They don't want to take the hit. Where it's like, if my PA fucked up, like, and this happened where like there was a golden time situation, and Matt, you know what golden time is, where we didn't take the names of the 11 people that were on the bus that landed 2 minutes after the golden time hour. Golden time is when they get double pay. Basically, any time after 16 hours, they get double the amount. So they get their day rate times 2, basically. And it's a lot of money in production. Golden time is like everything that ADs want to avoid because it costs production a lot. And we didn't get the names of the people on the bus, and my second AD, she was upset with us, but she mostly was mad at the PAs. And I'm like, I missed it, you missed it, the additional AD missed it. Like, all 3 of us ADs missed it. We didn't even think about grabbing the names of the people who were on that bus. Now, there was like this whole thing where it got mixed up with SAG, and everyone was claiming they were on the bus. Some people were not on the bus. It was like it was very, very dramatic. So because we didn't grab those names, something as simple as the names and numbers of the people who are on that bus, to actually, hey, these were the people, we took a list, these were the people on the bus, would have solved so many problems. But what ended up happening, and I'm so mad about this, what happened is that one of the ADs blamed the PA for this. And I was like, no, we should be accountable because we didn't tell the PA to do that. It's like, like that's us. That was our mistake. So that kind of made me mad. When you throw a PA under the bus, it pisses me right off. And any assistant director that's going to throw a PA under the bus, shame on you. And I don't want to work with you. I'm saying it now. I'm not taking it back. Yeah, I don't think I really talked about why I love being an AD so much, but I love it because I have all of the pieces. I can see all the pieces. I know my power in that position. I know how I can make the day better, how I can make the day smoother. And if there's a problem that I can solve, I feel better, like knowing that I'm in a position that I could help someone, solve that problem. And I love that. Whereas like if I'm a director, I might not be able to be that position. I might be causing the problems. So I love being the one that can control morale, and I can make the day better if I can, and I can make a smooth set, and I can communicate with crew, and I can have a good time. And I love the fact that I can, train new filmmakers, whether they're trying to be an AD or not. I can help them on their path, because the PAs I really like, and the ones that I'm like rooting for, I always ask them, like, what are you trying to do?
Because whatever you're trying to do, I will get you on the path. Like if you're trying to be an AD, yes, like I want you on my next show. I want you to be a key. I want you to be, you know, the key PA or whatever. I want to help you with your goals. So when you make those connections on set, know that there are people, and I know not everyone's like me, but there are so many people in the film industry that are going to want to help you. And I think that gets forgotten a lot, is that a lot of us, yes, there are some jaded crew members. There are the people who are going to complain. But even my complainer AD friends, the complainer, and yes, the complainer ADs are, I have them. They are my friends. They also want to help. They want to help the next generation. They want to train the new PAs. So they may be the complainers, but also they're like trying to help the next people, you know, come up as well. There are so many people in the industry that are like trying to help you. And if you mesh with someone, you make that relationship, you make that connection, like that is so valuable. And I think that just doesn't, like, because I think when people think about film industry, they're like, it's so hard to get into, it's who you know. Yes, it's exactly who you know, right? But once you know those people, once you're in the circles, once you're starting to get out there and get a name for yourself, it's like more and more people are going to know what you want to do, and they're going to want to help you if you vibe with them. Now, I may not vibe with somebody, like this is a perfect example with people in my set PA class. I opened up, because I used to interview for my set PA class. I used to interview and I used to screen them. Where like, if this is someone I want on my set and whatever, I used to have a very different structure. But then I opened it up to everybody, whoever wanted to be in my set PA class. And the reason for that is because I thought, who am I to just say no to somebody if they're trying to be in film? I may not vibe with someone. One of my set PA trainees, I get along with a lot of my set PA trainees, and I become close friends with a few of them. Like I see them on set all the time. We hang out. Like I've become real close friends with some of my set PAs. It's crazy that like I've become so close with some of them. I could never imagine the relationships I've gained from some of my trainees in my classes of just being friends with them. And I think when you take that and you ultimately think that you can affect their life and you want to help them. Like I can't believe that like I've actually been able to help the people I have been. And like I've always wanted to know what they wanted to do, and I wanted to make sure that they know that I'm in their corner. And whether or not I vibe with them, I could find someone that will vibe with that person, right? Some of them are really great and we get along. Some of them I wouldn't hire, right? I'm gonna be honest about that. Some of them I won't hire, but they will succeed anyways because they've taken the tools I've given them and they vibe with someone else. Like, let's be honest, like I don't vibe with everybody. And people are like, oh my God, I would love you on my set, but some people don't like me. It is a fact. Not everyone's going to like you. You're not going to vibe with everybody. So you have to find the people you vibe with. And that is like the goal when you're in the film industry, is to find the people that are like you. You know, maybe you are the complainer AG. Maybe you are the complainer PA or the complainer crew member. There are others just like you that will vibe with you and will hire you on the next thing because they like you. So it's like everyone has their own group. Everyone has their own vibe, and you are going to vibe with someone, you're not going to vibe with someone, but and my set PA trainees are the perfect example of that, where there was this one trainee where I was like, this guy is lost in the sauce. I don't know if I'd ever hire him. I gave him one day on a shoot and I was like, oh my God, I can't. I know it just was kind of like me and him didn't mesh. Cut to like a couple years later, he's like, hey, Amber, do you have that call sheet that like I was on that one day I needed, da, da, da. And he was like, I'm a second AD and I'm trying to make a call sheet. And I was like, what? Like he succeeded even though me and him didn't vibe. He found his own way. He found his own tribe. He found his own people to mesh with. And I was like very, very proud. And that just gave me more confidence in like how I'm doing this for people. It's like, not everyone's going to vibe with me, but they're going to take the tools and they're going to succeed regardless. And they're going to find their own people. So it's all about vibing with the right people and like finding your way with the people you vibe with. Like honestly, one Marco, if director is playing also lead role, oof, does that change any duties of a first AD on set? Now, that's a very, very great question. Thank you for asking that, because I did not even think about that, because I've worked with a lot of first-time directors, but I've also worked with a handful of directors who are also playing the lead role. Now, as a first, when you are dealing with the director also being the lead role, what kind of happens is that sometimes they'll have a co-director. I've not had that situation, but sometimes that will happen where they'll have like the writer with them and they'll have a co-director kind of like making sure that they're getting the performance that they want for their overall scope of the movie, right? And then also what happens is that the first AD sometimes is going to be giving notes to the director, where that has happened to me, where I was on this web series and my friend hired me as a first, and he was the lead role and he wrote and he was the director. So when it was his scenes, I was directing him. Like, thank God I had the ability to kind of like muster up that creative side of me. And because, you know, I do have that creative side where I was like, I would tell him, I would give him notes after every take. And he told me, he would ask me, he's like, Amber, what do you think of this? I was like, well, this kind of looks really off. Doesn't look natural. So like you end up giving a little of those notes. I think in the union world, it gets a little more like, they have to watch the take back and then they have to do it themselves, but then they have to get then they get the producers involved. Sometimes the producers are going to have more notes. So it just depends on the situation, how indie it is, how union it is, like what the budget is, because then if you were the first and they're also, you know, you're kind of like directing, what I have found is that when you're in director brain mode, you definitely are not thinking about time, and as a first AD, you are supposed to be thinking about time. You need to be out of this scene by this time. How much time for this? Time. It's always like, where are we in the day? Are we on time? Are we behind? Whatever, right? So when you are thinking about performance and creativity and, oh, this thing looks lovely, and like, oh my God, focus, and like you're thinking about all the things that make film great, you are not thinking about that ticking clock. So, and I realized that day when I like stepped into that role for the director who was the lead actor, and I was like, oh shit, I haven't looked at my watch in a good hour. And I was like, where are we? And luckily we were okay. But like, you definitely don't start thinking about time when you start getting into that like performance creativity brain. It's like, it was mind blowing to me to have to do both and manage both. It was very, very hard. And yeah, I actually worked with an actor who was the producer, writer, and the director, and she compartmentalized like things in her brain where it was like, okay, now she's gonna be a producer, and like, okay, and you had to do this for her, you had to, because she was an actor, and she like however she like organized it in her head, you're like, okay, I have to ask you a director question, and she's like, okay. And like she would take a moment to kind of just like switch gears real quick. It was like, it was very, very odd, but also awesome at the same time to actually witness this happening within her. So it was like, okay, I have a producer question. So like and then like if someone had an actor question for her, like she'd be like, okay. Like she would have to like mentally get into her character for a second. It was like amazing to see her switch gears like that. But you definitely have to kind of think of, you know, creative stuff for them and like have notes, because some ADs do not have the creative brain and they would not be able to handle if they had to give notes to the director as an actor. They wouldn't be able to do it. So just think about that sometimes if you are a first AD and you are going to be working with the director who's also the lead. It is very, very challenging. And if you're not ready for that, just be like, you know what, this might not be the thing for me. You know, maybe I'll like step back and do something else, or, you know, maybe watch how they work, maybe still offer to be on that project, but just not as a first, you know? Okay, one Marco. Currently I'm a producer for a friend film, and I think on the set I'll be first AD. Nobody wants to do it. Well, kudos for you for taking on the responsibility. Yeah, no one wants to do it is like the common thing where like no one wants to run the set because they feel it's a big responsibility, and everyone's kind of just like, no thank you. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I really appreciate all the questions, all the comments, for you participating and interacting with me and giving me all the things, and just all the love. I really appreciate you guys like really saying thank you and how you appreciate my channel and what I do. So thank you so much for joining me on this live stream, and I shall see you guys next time.